Hi everyone. You're welcome once again to our another episode of our podcast, Quantum Jollof podcast, where we talk about science in general with Africans, Nigerians, and we are interested in the enlightenment of our people and the advancement of science. Our guest today is Dr. Oluwaseun Ajayi, and he's a very long time friend of mine. I'm going to be reading his biography.
Biographical.
Uh, Dr. Oluwaseun Ajayi is a Christian writer, he's a researcher, he's an academic coach. Yeah, he's my coach. And he's a scholarship advocate. Yeah, that's true. He specializes in chronobiology, vector biology, insect physiology, and he's currently a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Cincinnati in Ohio, United States of America. He studies sleep biology in medically important insects like mosquito and kissing bugs. He has published in high impact journals, and he has secured personal research funding. Beyond research, he mentors students from underrepresented backgrounds, people like me, particularly people from Africa, and he mentors them on graduate school application. He's also the founder of Scholars Connect, an online platform that has guided thousands of people through graduate school application via Zoom events and Twitter Spaces. Dr. Oluwaseun, we are so grateful for having you on our podcast today.
All
We
right. Thank you so much, Opeyemi, for the invitation, and thank you, Adewale, for hosting this podcast. I'm very grateful.
so we have a lot of questions for you today, and I will take the lead. And I will, I'll, can you tell us about your journey, how you got to where you are today, and what have you been doing from Futa? I know from Futa
Mm.
to Jamaica, if I'm right, then to the US. So can you tell us about your story, sir?
All right. Thank you so much. I mean, especially when you consider the political climate, I just remember that, one of the words I used in my bio was underrepresented background, which is something that's quite, it's now sounding offensive now, in our current political climate, which is not something to be, we should joke about. Well, it is what it is now, right now. All right, so just to go to your question, like you said, I finished from the Federal University of Technology, Akure. That's where I bagged my Bachelor of Technology in Biology in 2012. And I remember vividly, I had, two amazing people ahead of me then, those who graduated from the same department, who were also scholarship awardees. So they were those that actually inspired me about the need for me to also leave the country and seek graduate funding outside of the country. And my first introduction to scholarship funding was Jamaica when I won the Commonwealth Scholarship. That was the first, we were the first tranche of students who got that award, for low and middle income countries. Typically, we know that Commonwealth Scholarship funds education in the United Kingdom, but they started that uh, scheme. Now, I think the name is now Queen Elizabeth Commonwealth Scholarship, where they send people to equally good universities in low and middle income countries. So I won that scholarship and I finished in 1 year and I was back in Futa as an assistant lecturer. The journey started again, trying to get PhD funding. And I remember that during that very period, I think it took about 14 months, even more than that, for me to secure a PhD scholarship. And, I tried so many places, Japan, Germany, UK. I mean, there's no scholarship I didn't try then,
Mm.
just to be modest about it. But finally, I wrote the GRE and I was able to, you know, I then prior to that time, I didn't think I could pass GRE, because of how difficult that exam is. But fortunately for me, I passed and I was able to secure my admission at the University of Cincinnati here, where I'm currently also doing my postdoc. And I think that's my journey so far. Yeah.
Mm. That's quite inspiring. I wouldn't want because a lot of Nigerians go to so many places.
I wanted to ask, do you speak Patois?
Yeah, patois. I think when I was there for 1 year, I couldn't speak very well, but I understood. It was. Thank you for asking this question. I remember the first class I attended, because most of their lecturers there, they often switch from patois to English.
English.
So at some point, I was like, who brought me to this place? Because I couldn't understand anything. But over time, I was able to, acclimate and I enjoyed my stay because that particular scholarship gave me the opportunity of meeting people from different backgrounds and
Right.
understanding how people think. I was used to the way things are run in Nigeria in terms of lecturers, admin staff, but I saw something quite different that,
Yeah.
people could be nice, even though they are admin folks.
Right. Honestly, I would, yeah, I went to Russia for my master's, right? But anytime someone mentioned Jamaica to me, I would just think they're talking about enjoyment. I travel a lot and enjoyment. This kind of, well, that's very nice to know that people can still go to Jamaica for their graduate studies. So yeah, so moving on with our podcast, I will start with the questions that we have for you today. And I think I've read some of your papers before and I've forgotten some of them, but the first question I have is that you study the behaviors of mosquito, especially when they are sleeping. Honestly, I don't know if sleeping mosquito, I don't know if we care about it, but how do you come about this and what was your journey like? Why did you choose this research?
All right, so to be frank and to be truthful, uh, the study was not my brainchild. It was the brainchild of my advisor. So when I got into the lab, there was a side project I was running all through the fall semester. So the moment I finished that particular side project, it was now time for me to develop my own independent research. And that was where the struggle started from. So a lot of times I know I will have meetings with my advisor because we used to have regular meetings. And I would discuss some of my plans, some of my ideas with him. And even me that I was sharing those ideas, I was not really convinced about those ideas. Sometimes I will want to do a particular research and I will go online and a lot of papers are already out on that particular idea. So it was becoming very frustrating because at the end of first year, I was expected to have my first research we call it RAC, yeah, Research Advisory Council Committee, sorry, Research Advisory Committee meeting. So that was where I was expected to, present my research proposal, even before the qualifying exam in the second year. So it was a struggle, I was coming with so many ideas. But on this particular meeting, my advisor just showed me a particular paper. It's a classical paper on sleeping insects. And that was where the journey started. And it was like, do you mind doing anything on sleeping mosquito? I was like, this is my first time of, even encountering something that has to do with sleep in insects at all. What we know about sleep, has been things, done with, humans, mammals, and what have you. So it was that particular paper that ignited, most of the things I did in terms of research. So I took up the paper and I was reading, and that was it. That was what actually fueled, my desire in understanding, what's it called? Sleep in mosquitoes. And so a lot of challenges because Drosophila, which is the classical, model organism used for sleep in insects generally, they have done a lot of stuff with them. So, but me, trying to now extrapolate some of the things that have been done with Drosophila with mosquitoes was very challenging because the biology was different, even though they're in the same, order, when you talk about insects. But the biology is different. Mosquitoes get dehydrated quite easily. So you have to consider all those. And you are running experiment for at least 1 week. So you have to consider how much of sugar and water you are putting alongside the system so that the mosquitoes does not die. So designing experiments, then convincing people about, why we need to study sleeping mosquitoes was one of the challenges I actually faced, during the course of my journey so far, you know, and, uh, trying to get funding from organizations, about You have to actually, convince them that this study is important. And so that's been a journey so far. And I think I've really enjoyed it because it has opened my eyes to several things we can do in that area of mosquito sleep.
Just a question. Is there mosquito in the US?
Yeah, there are mosquitoes in the
Yeah, there are
US.
mosquitoes in the US, of course.
There are mosquitoes in the
Okay.
US. Yeah. A
Interesting.
lot of times
But they
people
don't cause
feel,
malaria, right? They cause dengue or something like that.
dengue. So
Okay.
any malaria incidents that you see here is
Hmm.
as a result of international travel.
Eh,
So the problem is for malaria to happen, you need a competent vector with a competent parasite to transmit it. So that combination is not always there,
okay.
for mosquitoes here in the US.
Interesting. And you mentioned something in your biography, kissing bug. What about this one?
Yeah, kissing bugs are also an example, or let me say, are also very important medical medical insects, or let me say, insect of medical importance.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know how many of us remember uh, African sleeping sickness.
Yeah, I know this.
Yeah, African trypanosomiasis.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So that one is caused by what's it called? Is it Trypanosoma brucei? So
Hmm.
there's this particular insect that causes that in Africa, and that is fly,
It's like,
Glossina.
okay.
So kissing bug is now the South American counterpart,
Oh,
that causes
interesting.
Chagas disease.
Ah,
So we have fly on one end causing African trypanosomiasis, and we have
Shaga.
kissing bugs transmitting the parasites, that causes Chagas disease, in South America. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Interesting. So I was about to ask you uh, what's interesting about mosquitoes. So, for example, you said it's difficult, it was somehow challenging to communicate why you want to study sleeping in mosquitoes to like funding bodies. How were you able to communicate this in the end? What's fascinating about mosquitoes? What's interesting
Uh,
about it?
yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah, and so one thing that's fascinating about mosquito is that if you combine the number of deaths caused by humans, plus crocodiles, plus snakes, if you sum them up, it's
Hmm.
not up to the death caused by mosquitoes per year.
Wow.
So which is quite interesting. Mosquitoes are the deadliest animal in the world. A lot of times people don't know this, especially when you even look at it from the sub-Saharan African context
Hmm.
of how many children under 5 dies from mosquitoes. So it's very interesting that when you look at their small size and
Yeah.
how much medical damage, let me use the word medical damage, they cause in terms, not just in terms of deaths, but when you look at the amount of money that people spend because they are not feeling well, like go back to even if we talk about Nigeria now, how much people pay
Hmm.
for anti-malaria drugs now. So that's why they are fascinating. They are small size and how much they are of importance medically. So that's quite fascinating and interesting about them.
Hmm. I have this theory about science or about medicine in general or human health. The smaller a pathogen or something is, the deadlier it is. Like lions have look deadly on the outside, but they don't kill so much. But you see, mosquitoes, viruses are cool. They are so terrible.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have a question, right? So, like you say you study sleep. Like, how does the sleeping pattern? Do they sleep in the afternoon? Do they sleep in the night? Like, do you have to go to the lab midnight to go and see when they are sleeping, or how do you even measure this sleep?
So that's a very important question. Yeah. So depending on the species, there are over, if I'm not mistaken, there are over 200 species of mosquitoes, but three principal genera are responsible for disease that we see:
Mm.
Culex, Aedes, Anopheles. Those are the three principal genera that are important, to us. But if you look at these three principal genera, they have different, what's it called, biting time. You know, so we kind of like proxy. So one proxy you can use to define sleep is the absence of activity. Does that make sense? If something is active, it's not sleeping. That's the idea. So, so we are trying to now look at, okay, so if it is active during the day, so the hypothesis is that it should be sleeping during the night. Does that make sense?
Mm.
Right. So we have for mosquitoes, for those three principal genera, they're also on that spectrum. So we have those that are diurnal, those that are nocturnal, and we have one that is closer to nocturnal, but it's more of like all this transition period between dusk and dawn. That's when they are much more active. So we kind of like look at their historical observations in the wild, when people encounter them, So a lot of times people encounter Aedes during the day, and I don't have to tell you that Anopheles bites during the night, because that's when we encounter them, and that's why we have our insecticide treated nets during the night. So we kind of like use that proxy to define that, and but beyond that, you can't just use that alone. So we have to now, use a system. So it's called the locomotor activity monitoring system. So it was primarily designed for Drosophila to monitor the activity. So so this is how it works. Like it kind of like counts the number of times they fly, kind of like, so there's an infrared beam in the center. So you kind of like count the number of times it breaks it. Then it looks at how much immobility happens for a subsequent number of time. So for example, if the fly is not active for maybe 5 minutes, that was the cutoff that was used in Drosophila. So if the fly is not active for 5 minutes across a particular time frame, then it counts as sleep. And that was what we actually used for our sleep studies. But instead of using the 5 minute cutoff, we increase our cutoff, because apart from just doing that locomotor activity monitoring, we also use video tracking, to see posture metrics, because there are posture metrics. Like humans, when we want to sleep, there's a posture we take, when we want to sleep. The same for insects, so they have posture. For Drosophila, for example, they move away from the food and they lay prostrate. For cockroach, they lower their antenna when they are trying to sleep, and it is raised when they are active. So we're able to also see something like that with mosquitoes, where we saw some metrics. So for mosquito, we saw that their hind legs are raised when they are in the active posture, and it is lowered when they are trying to get into the sleep-like state. So combination of video tracking, looking at all these posture metrics, and also using the locomotor activity, were things we combined to define their sleep-like state. And this was consistent, because we saw the same thing that people have reported in terms of historical observations. And we also saw that it was happening, playing out, that diurnal mosquitoes like Aedes, we also saw that they have more sleep during the night. And nocturnal mosquitoes like Anopheles, we saw that they have more sleep during the day. So which was quite consistent. Yeah.
That's quite interesting. And so
yeah, that was a mouthful. Sorry, I had to talk for long for that.
So I have another question, right? So like everybody have something that inspires them. And there's this story about like Isaac Newton, that he was walking by the garden, and imagine he saw like apple fell from the tree, and that was what inspired his gravitational laws theory and stuff like that. So how do you get your own research idea? Because I know that mosquito kills people, malaria kills people, and malaria is caused by mosquito. Like, and do you have to read a lot of papers? Like, how do you like come up with your ideas for your research?
Yeah, like initially, like I told you, my advisor handed me one paper, and that paper turned to 3 papers, and 3 papers turned to multiple papers. And just from that particular, those papers, I was able to, define and characterize sleep-like state first. But subsequent research or subsequent experiments, how to now come by, like I won't say inspiration, but more of like, how is this relevant to mosquito? For Drosophila does not cause disease. So how does sleep now translate to, mosquito blood feeding, for example, mosquito host landing, for example, mosquito transmission of disease? So those are the ways, we kind of like look at what we know about their what we know about their biology, let me put that way, and relate it to sleep. How does this influence, their ability to transmit disease? Like you said, mine is not that magical in terms of, getting ideas for research. So I just go through papers, and sometimes I see fancy experiments in those papers, and I like, oh, how can we also apply this to, mosquitoes? Or sometimes some global phenomena we just like artificial light at night is something that is quite interesting right now. How many of us know that the rate of sky illumination right now is higher than we've ever had in history. So I kind of like look at how does because now right now when you go through every time when you go through the night, that it is not entirely dark. Am I correct?
Yeah, true.
It's not entirely dark. So how does something like that influence mosquito sleep-like states? So you can combine if you have mosquitoes in rural environments, combine with compare with mosquitoes in urban environments. Do you expect more sleep in urban mosquitoes compared to rural mosquitoes?
Obviously.
Those are kind of ideas, that kind of like come. Like I said, it's not magical. Some of those things are just coming from, regular observation of what happens in the environment or just reading papers, like I said, and I don't know if I answered that question
Yeah, I
right.
think I
Yeah,
missed your
yeah,
point. Just regular observation of what's is going on in nature naturally.
yeah, yeah. Then one other thing I want to answer to talk in terms of that is that sometimes some ideas also come from a particular result. So I get a result today. I'm like, this is interesting. And from there, we propose other experiments. So for example, my RNA-seq experiment, we saw that if you sleep deprived mosquitoes, we are seeing upregulation of immune genes. So the question now is, how does that translate to, bacteria or pathogen challenge? Are we seeing more of, resistance to pathogen challenge? So sometimes the results you get from M1 could inspire, additional experiments in M2. So
just a
those
question.
are
To
kind of like
clarify, RNA-seq, what does it mean?
RNA sequencing.
Yeah, maybe not everybody understand. Everybody that
All
will
right, so RNA sequencing is when you try to know the quantity and quality of gene being expressed across multiple groups.
okay.
It might be across multiple states. So for example, I have sleep deprived mosquitoes, for example, and I compare with the control mosquitoes. There might be different gene profiles based on two different behavioral states. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We also try to balance science communication with the complexity. So yeah.
Yeah. It's good that you brought my attention to that. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. So when you now generate an idea, for example, immune system is upregulated in sleep deprived states, how do you bring it to the lab? So what's the uh, hypothesis testing process like? So how do you want to test this? How do you go for that? How do you design experiments? What's your laboratory like? I don't know if
Yeah.
you get.
So yeah, I get your question, and I think it's a very important question. So like I said earlier, I used to have regular meetings with my advisor. So it's always a time to talk about research ideas. So before even I discuss, most times we don't even do. I won't say we don't do open discussion among the lab members. We do, but most of those things will have been, maybe something we have talked about one-on-one advisor before we now bring into the general, and most times it's just, general comments about some of these things that, we bring to the lab members. So like I said earlier, a lot of those ideas when they come, I ask, because you have to consider two things. How is this important to mosquito biology? Because the end goal, the overarching aim of my research is, how can we manipulate sleep for vector control? How can we manipulate sleep, to reduce disease transmission? So if any idea I'm bringing does not align in that direction, then there's no point. Then, we also have to consider, funding expectation. You have funding for this. You don't want to do a research that none of the preliminary data can be used to get additional, funding. Like in my own case, a lot of my preliminary data, right now, have been used to propose other, research funding like R21 that we just submitted, and that's the beauty of science, that you have ideas from this particular research, and you can use that same idea, to write, a more broad, general research proposal for a different idea entirely. So, like I said earlier, when I have ideas like that, I talk to my advisor about it. We think about it, and we design experiment. And that's one of those things I love about my advisor. There's this open policy of you designing your experiment yourself and coming back to kind of like text if the design makes sense, and go ahead and troubleshoot, and that's what most people do. Unlike people who work with rats, they might not be able to troubleshoot because rats are very expensive. Mosquitoes are not hard to rear. Within 7 days you have your adults. So you can quickly do experiments, and if it doesn't work out, you tweak whatever you want to tweak and you run it again. So that's been the way I run things here.
Yeah. Thanks for the response. So I have a question, so what's the big picture of this sleep of a thing like in mosquito? Is it relevant for like drug designing, countering mosquito, countering whatever pathogen is important for this process? Also, what's the overall the big picture of the outcome of the research?
Yeah, like I said earlier, the big picture is, how can we leverage? That was the question utmost of my heart, when I started my PhD. Especially when that research came up. How can we leverage their sleep states? No, so let me just go back a bit. So one of the things that researchers used to do, or let me put that vector biologists used to do, to control mosquito is to leverage their biology. If you understand their biology, you can use their biology against them.
That's true for most of the more.
Exactly. You can use their biology against them. And so that was the idea, that if we can understand, their sleep biology, how can we leverage this, to control them or to reduce the, prevalence of mosquito-borne diseases, in our environment. So, like I was saying something about the RNA sequencing the other time, RNA-seq. The idea is that if we can identify genes that are involved in sleep dysregulation. This sleep regulation is talking about, or maybe there's a gene that if you have, if you affect it, or I don't know, I'm trying to make it more general for people.
I get. You can't use the science term.
Yeah. If you take that gene and you do something to that gene, does it reduce the sleep, or does it change the sleep cycle? No, because if you can do that as you're sleeping, mosquito is not disturbing you, mosquito is not sleeping, it's a big advantage for you. So because that's the idea I have, if we can find a way of doing vector avoidance, like target them, classical method of control right now in terms of using of chemical insecticides are not working well because of insecticide resistance. Why can't we look for other means, creating products that could be helpful? Especially in terms of vector avoidance that I mentioned, like while you are sleeping, mosquitoes are also sleeping and they are not disturbing you. Unlike what is obtainable when you are sleeping and these guys are active and they are trying to feed on you. Or the other spectrum is to, reduce their fitness by causing them to sleep less. If their fitness is reduced, they lay eggs less, they blood feed less. And in so doing that, and sometimes people might think about the ecological significance of that, because you can't decide to eliminate mosquitoes. It's going to affect the ecosystem. So it's just kind of like creating that balance of, so creating the balance of vector avoidance, vector management, and suppressing of disease transmission. So that's kind of like the overarching aim. How can we identify gene targets that we can, use for subsequent, I don't want to talk about CRISPR-Cas9, but some of us understand, CRISPR-Cas9, and hopefully we can add that and explain what that means. But so that's kind of like, the direction I'm going to. If we can identify genes, that are involved in sleep, and you can manipulate them in such that mosquitoes are having less sleep, or they are sleeping at the wrong time. So those are the kind of areas we are going to.
Yeah. So I know that you did all of this sleep research during your PhD, and you mentioned that you're still currently in the same lab that you did your PhD for your postdoctoral research. Are you still continuing that project, or you already changed your direction?
No, I'm still continuing the project, and I'm taking onto myself other projects. And that's what, bettered kissing bugs. So I'm trying to see, if we can also, test the same phenomenon in different uh, arthropod vectors. I don't know if that makes sense, because you can't just generalize about, sleep being important for insect of medical importance if it's just only in mosquitoes that you're running it. So for example, in my lab now, there's a particular grad student that I also work with, sissy fly. It's just kind of like we can have a robust understanding of how sleep influences the biology of blood-feeding arthropods generally. So I'm still working on mosquitoes, and I'm still working on kissing bugs. I'm in the phase of trying to characterize sleep-like states in kissing bug as well. The another project I'm doing with what's it called, with mosquitoes. So there's this particular project I love so much, is we are trying to see that if we sleep deprived males, how does it affect their male fertility? How does it affect their ability to fertilize the female? So so many interesting areas you can go with that. Yeah.
Okay, so just one question before I go to my final question. What's it with fly and its neighbor, kissing fly? They have interesting name. Is it because of the guys that are in this field, or just, I mean, just out of curiosity, I'm just wondering, why do they have beautiful names like this?
Beautiful names. I can't answer that. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. Yeah. But I don't know why they came up with that. And that's a good question, I know. A lot of times, some of these names comes from things that happen. I think mosquitoes, if I can remember very well, mosquito came from maybe Latin or Greek name that has to do with swamp.
Okay.
That has to do with bad air.
Okay.
So when you get to a swampy area, the air around that area is very bad. So, and they found a lot of these creatures there. And it makes sense because that's where they breed. So that was where the mosquito came from. But sissy fly, I've not really taken time to understand where that name came from. So
okay, so finally, are you planning to start your own lab after your postdoc, or what's the future outlook like? I know this is a scary question to ask.
Yeah, it's a scary question. Yeah, you put me on the you put me on the spot. Typically I've tried so many things. I've tried industrial positions, I've tried faculty positions. So I'm just, kind of like putting everything, but I've not really made up my mind right now. Not that I've not made up my mind. So the reason is not far-fetched, family reasons.
Right.
I'm trying to wait for my wife to be done with her PhD so that we can know the next phase.
Nice.
Yeah, but at this point in time, if you have jobs for me, I know you have so many funding, so please fund my research. Yeah. But if you ask my, first choice of work would be to also establish my own lab, and continue research in this area. Yeah. But I'm open to other opportunities, Yeah. My kind of dream job, if I'm to be truthful, my kind of dream job is government work in research institute like USDA or CDC, because at that point you are not burdened by the craze to get funding. The government funds whatever you want to do, and you use taxpayers' money well. Let me put it that way. Yeah. Hopefully, Dodge will not take away.
I don't know. I don't want to talk politics, but I don't know if that is true for the current government that we have.
Yeah.
No, it's a dicey situation. Yeah, it's what is happening right now. A lot of funding. A lot of people are being affected by funding right now. I spoke with an undergraduate that finished from our lab, just yesterday, and she was telling me about the situation in their lab too at NIH. So that the saving grace they had currently is just the fact that they had other private partnerships that are funding what they are doing. So it's a crazy, I mean, for the next 4 years, it's going to be a crazy time in the United States. Hopefully, things change, and just to encourage, prospective grad students that might be watching this, please think about it clearly, before you decide on where to go. The political situation of anywhere, and that's why sometimes I laugh at people when they say they are not interested in politics. Politics affects every aspect of your life, So, and I'm sure Europe is trying to push as many people as possible right now. So Europe might be the juiciest destination maybe in the next couple of 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the line,
It takes some
until
time.
maybe this madness is stopped, yeah.
Yeah, it will take some time to recover
Yeah.
from all of these things.
Yeah.
So hopefully everybody will be fine. So we are going to like give you like 2 minutes, to 3 minutes to 5 minutes to talk about whatever is it, politics in Nigeria, Chelsea, your Scholars Connect, what your Twitter,
Yeah.
your application and all of that. You have the floor to talk about anything you want.
All right, let me start with Scholars Connect. So please, if you're listening to this, I will encourage you to, be a part of Scholars Connect. So we hold regular meetings. This year we've not held anyone so far. Trying to cook some things up. So the idea is to connect people, at the 3 levels. I believe that at every point in time, students are at either one of these 3 levels. It's either you're a prospective grad student, or you're a current grad student, or you are done and you're trying to think of the next phase of your life. So if you are in those 3 categories, Scholars Connect is for you. It's just to connect you to resources, and we do that by inviting, those who have gone ahead of us, who have ideas, or who have experience in the academia, industry, consulting, consultancies, so many other things you can think about. So please, you can reach out to my Twitter handle, at Matt Hudson. So if you have any question, and we also have a Twitter handle at AF Scores Connect. So you can follow us on Twitter. Yeah, I can. You want me to type it?
No,
I can type it at any.
I can look for it, but we'll put it
Yeah,
on
it's okay.
and on the video itself as well.
So hopefully, but before maybe by April or March, or April or June, or I said April, May, June or something, we should come up with something. But in this first quarter, we've not been able to do anything so far. So that's that on Scholars Connect. So let me talk about Chelsea. Should I talk about Chelsea?
Talk about Chelsea. Let me drag you.
Don't let me talk about Chelsea before they drag me. All right. So hopefully we make top 4. And I don't know what's wrong with Cole Palmer right now. Yeah, but it has been a crazy year so far for him. Yeah. And hopefully I'm behind the Chelsea women now. So if I talk about Chelsea, behind the Chelsea women. So don't drag me.
Yeah, they are facing Barcelona, so
we should be able to win now. This time around, 3rd time lucky. 3rd time champ. Yeah. I mean, last year we almost won. We won at their home, and we got to Stamford Bridge, and they gave us a ridiculous red card and a questionable penalty. So, but excuses are for losers. Excuses are for losers.
Chelsea are losers, by the way.
Hopefully, if we can win, if we can get beyond Barcelona, it's going to be very difficult. But I think it's possible. But let's see what happens. So in terms of Nigeria, yeah, a lot of time. I don't know if you noticed that I've stopped trying to talk about Nigerian politics, and the reason I'm not far-fetched, and I think it has to do with a lot of psychophancy right now. A lot of times people just try to tag, what's it called? And how will I put it now? So people just have they tag a false narrative or a false motive about whatever you're doing. So if you complain too much, it's because you are envious. If you complain about Lagos, they will tell you that, what about your own state? So I've just decided to take the back seat and just watch out as things unfold. But in terms of our politics, there are so many things we need to do, and I think a lot of our democratic institutions have been, especially the independence, they have been eroded right now, which is not good, especially because it takes time to build a democracy, and if we're going on this path, that means we have to start the work all over again, and it's going to take some time before we can strengthen that democracy. So hopefully the federal government right now will stem this tide of trying to, oppress every dissenting voices. And that's what makes, democracy stronger, or what makes democracy interesting, when there are people that might not like what you do. And you're trying to prove them wrong that you're on the right track. I don't know how people see that, but I see criticism that way, that, you are trying to do your best, irrespective of what people say, not trying to silence them, Sometimes just look at what their criticism and work on it. Like the 770 now they are paying copper 77,000 now. 77,000 naira, am I correct? So, and it came from a Lagos coppers complaints. Yeah, maybe people might say, oh, maybe the government also already had it added in the works that they're gonna pay. But at least we can trace it with the fact that she complained and it was almost automatic that they started paying. Yeah, so hopefully these people will think about that and they will stop silencing every dissenting voices and work. They have been given a mandate. I know people might have exception to what I just said, that they have been given a mandate. Some people like they steal the mandate. I don't know. I don't know about that. I can only go by
what you think.
Yeah, so I have to go by what INEC declared. INEC said they won. So, and if INEC said they won, so I will assume that the people give them the mandate. And if the people give them the mandate, they should work for the people.
For the mandate, right?
Then so that's what I'm going to see on that. Yeah. Like I said,
what about science in Nigeria?
Science in Nigeria. We have a long way to go. We have a long way to go, especially with the fact that I know people are not even seeing role models too. People are not seeing role models. They are seeing more of role models in the arts, in the entertainment, and people are not that passionate. I'm sure you remember how you did your undergraduate research. So if we don't come to that point where we fund research in our universities, it's gonna be like that. And for us to really compete with other global universities, we have to just step up science here. I don't know. Except you have any particular question about science in Nigeria, I will appreciate that, because so many random things are just coming to my head.
Yeah. We know it's crazy. So
I think on mentorship, like not seeing role models. I think this is a very
I mean there are people out there too that they can be inspired by, but a lot of especially with this Jackpot movement now, people are not even staying. I have this conversation with someone, was it 2 days ago, and he was saying something about how many of the people who got this overseas exposure, if they didn't even they returned, and after some time they left again, because a lot of times it has to do with the challenges of translating some of the research you did here back home. And I'm sure Kwemi can say that. Adewale can even say that. I don't know how you're going to go back home,
honestly,
and try to implement some of the research you are doing. I don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah, honestly, when I was trying to get my US visa, I got administrative processing and I was in Nigeria for 6 months. I messaged a Nigerian biotech institution. I forgot their name. It's the government. I think it's NABDA or something. It's a government agency. Honestly, I sent them email. They replied me to send them my CV. I sent my CV to them, and I put it there that I don't even mind. I want to work for free.
For free, yeah.
They did not reply me till tomorrow. So that's one of the problems. So I mean, I hope one day that we will be able to get to that point. But before then, we just have to hold the line.
Yeah, research is capital intensive. I remember in our lab meetings we used to talk about how much we are spending on projects.
But the return on investment is also very difficult to measure. It's so expensive because if you develop a successful drug, it can work for many of the research we've been doing in the past.
And that's the difference, between how countries like where we are currently think about investment in research and how we think about it has changed now because right now this don't let me talk about this present government, right? But you understand what I mean. So the way they think about research
it's just for a while. It's just for 4 years and things
4 years. Hopefully we'll return back to normalcy.
All right, I don't know if Wale has any other specific question.
None from me for now.
Otherwise, we have come to the end of the podcast. Thank you, Dr. Oluwaseun, for joining us today to discuss your science, to discuss your projects, your plans, your career, and we hope that everything works fine for you at the end of the day. Thank you for discussing Chelsea as well. We hope that Kopama comes back.
He's not coming back. I'm telling you.
Arsenal boy, Arsenal guy.
I can
So we
I beg
hope
Real
that,
Madrid do. Okpe, please. I beg me beat these people.
of course now,
Please.
of course now. They said
beg.
yesterday, Bukayo Saka posted that he's back or something. They said pray for Madrid. I was like, hey, okay, no problem.
I beg, don't put me to
Madrid
shame.
can play nonsense in La Liga for all I care. You can even beat them 5-0 yesterday, and they will play Champions League match with the strongest team today, and they will use their Aram. Is it Aram or Titanic Force? They use their Titanic Force to win. So Arsenal just go and relax. So
Their own
anyway,
book.
yeah. Anyways, we have come to the end of the podcast. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah.